Story 1. Continuing to turn off lights in empty rooms, even though it seems like a small thing. It's like a little dance I do. Enter room, turn on light, leave room, turn off light. My parents drilled it into my head that it saves electricity and money. There are times I'll visit friends and have the inexplicable urge to flick off the switch in an unoccupied room. It's amusing how these tiny habits become ingrained in us over time. A silent nod to the lessons from our past. Story 2. Complimenting people. Just random people out and about. I like your shirt. Nice hat. Cool jacket. It doesn't matter who they are. I see someone wearing something, I compliment it. No reason not to, honestly. Story 3. Use deodorant before I go to bed. I read this article saying using deodorant before bed lets it stick to your skin for longer, and you smell better throughout the day. I've been told I smell really nice by women I've gone on dates with, but I never use cologne or anything else other than the cheap deodorant I buy at my local store. Story 4. The first thing that came to my mind was that I always put away my cart after grocery shopping. It doesn't matter if I leave it in the store or the parking lot area. I always put my cart away in one of the designated areas. I even park quite a distance away at some stores, and I still feel the need to put it away properly even in extreme weather. If there's a stray cart as I walk into the store, I will also put that cart away. I was always taught to do this as a kid, and it stuck. Story 5. Not mine, but my husband's. Our bedroom is long but narrow. The length of our bed is very nearly the width of the room. I like to sleep with the wall beside me, so whenever I have to get up in the middle of the night, I have to step over him. My husband, even when he's sleeping, holds up his hand as support to keep me from stumbling. He also does this whenever I go down any flight of stairs or get out of vehicles. 14 years later, he still does it because I had a bad fall years ago when we had just started dating. Story 6. Radio check at the start of my shift. We carry radios on duty. I always do a radio check. You want to make sure everyone can hear you before you need them to hear you. Story 7. I wash my hands frequently before touching food, after using the bathroom, and I always say please and thank you when interacting with everyone. Story 8. Saying I love you to my boys. They, in turn, have expressed their love and affection to others in our family who mean a lot to them, which is hilarious. I've heard their grandfather say that once to my wife in 15 years, and it was awkward. Now he's got little boys constantly saying how much they love him. Story 9. When I am in a waiting room, I will not stare at my phone. I think there is something human about just waiting instead of filling my mind and time with screen time. Story 10. A constant striving for clarity and simplicity. This is reflected in the fact that I try to make explanations accessible and concise so that any information is easy to understand. Story 11. I make sure I always smile and say thank you after everything I do, even for their tiny acts of service. They always smile back, and it's kind of adorable to look at that. Story 12. Despite having transitioned to an entirely digital library, I still catch myself doing the sniff test on books, even the ebooks on my tablet. Old habits from countless library visits die hard, I suppose. I absent-mindedly bring the screen closer to my nose, expecting that comforting scent of paper and ink. Then I realize what I am doing and chuckle at the quirkiness of it all. Story 13. Waiting a second before going when a light turns green, especially if I'm the one at the front of the line. You never know if some lunatic is going to blow the red. Better to pause and stay safe, even if it might annoy the driver behind me. Story 14. Drinking water. I keep a bottle with me everywhere, and I reach for it without even thinking. Staying hydrated has become second nature and keeps me feeling clear-headed and energized throughout the day. Story 15. I journal, brain dump, and have a tracking system for goals, mood, weight, anxiety, and so much more. 20 minutes in the morning over coffee saves me so much effort and anxiety. Story 16. I'm obsessed with having a clean kitchen. The rest of the house I can be pretty lazy with, but I can't stand having a dirty kitchen. Every day I do dishes, clean counters, and mop floors in that order. Story 17. Closing stuff? Well, I have this thing with open doors and open zippers. I get anxious when I see them half closed or fully opened. I need them to be fully closed, so I tend to close them even when they're not mine. Like if it's my friend's pencil case that is half open, I tend to close it without thinking. And when I get out of a room, I usually stay until I'm sure it's fully closed. Story 18. I am considerate and aware of my surroundings when in public so as not to be in anyone's way. It's a shame how many people lack this simple act of decency. Story 19. Doing a couple of stretch exercises automatically when I get up in the morning. Definitely doing them out of habit and without thinking. That's why I am not stiff in my 50s. Story 20. I saw an article a few years back on how Paul McCartney does these eye yoga ocular exercises and that they've helped him avoid needing glasses. I'm not sure if it works, but as a nearsighted person, I always find myself doing those exercises without even thinking. Story 21. Washing my hands after going to the toilet or upon entering the house. The first one shouldn't be worth mentioning, and yet, there's a huge spike happening in some illnesses, and it seems like it might be because disgusting people think that using hand sanitizer is just as good as washing your hands. It isn't. Not only are you just consuming filth, but there are disease vectors that soap and water will remove or destroy that hand sanitizer will not kill. Like norovirus. Wash your hands, you filthy animals. I think that my attention to hand hygiene is highly related to the fact that I haven't had COVID-19 to this day. Story 22. I've been running consistently for long enough now, several years, that it's just part of my day and routine, and I no longer have the dread or mental buildup for it. Yesterday, it was raining and gross out, and I had a 26-minute jog to do. I just put on a jacket and went. A few years ago, that would have been like a full mental battle and worthy of a social media post. Oh my gosh, it was gross outside, but I did it. Yesterday, it was a non-event. Story 23. Always putting things back where they belong. I don't even think about it, but every time I finish using something, it goes right back to its spot. It saves me so much time and frustration later because I never have to search for things when I need them. Story 24. Recently, I have been getting into the habit of making sure I eat 3 meals a day. I used to only eat once a day and an excessive amount at that. I have lowered my calorie intake and have balanced out my meals. I would like to say it is a good habit to have. Story 25. Always put the toilet seat and cover down before flushing. I can always tell when someone else used my toilet, like if I have guests, because the cover will be up, or worse, the cover and the seat. Story 26. My daughter moved her car into the garage to vacuum and clean out the interior. She was finished and needed to move her car back out to the driveway and put Mom's car back in the garage. As she is backing out, I see that she has her seatbelt on. She puts it on out of habit without even thinking about it. I'm proud of her for having this habit. Story 27. Seatbelts in cars. In Italy, the backseat passengers have the idea that they do not need seatbelts, so everyone looks at me like I am the weird one when I put it on. Story 28. I have a list. Holding doors for people. Push in my chair. Always have my family walk on the inside while I'm close to the street. If we're dining out, I clean up the table, stack cups and plates. If I remember to carry alcohol wipes, I clean the table. Story 29. For a time, I would instinctively start to say a blessing. Blessed are you, Lord, before eating, but then realize I don't say blessings anymore. So I would instinctively pivot to teach me your statutes so I wouldn't say a blessing in vain. Story 30. I think my best habit is to always be attentive to the person I am speaking with. Even if someone just shares their thoughts, I try to support, listen, and help like a real friend. Story 31. If I find someone's phone, I will turn it in without hesitation. It happened to me a week ago, and the girl came back and was able to retrieve it. I often empty my car of rubbish daily on the way out. I wash my clothes when the basket is full. I use cleanser in the shower every day. Whenever I make a call, I always say, "Hi, how are you?" It always seems to make people pause as they don't expect it, but I just have to do it. Story 32. VR gaming after the gym. It ranges from a moderate arm-swinging session to an intense cardio workout that leaves you dripping with sweat. On top of weightlifting and cardio at the gym, it's like I don't even feel it because I get so absorbed in the game. Story 33. Bringing a paper towel or tissue with me everywhere. You never know. consistently checking that I have my phone, keys, and wallet on my person whenever I am out. I think these things come with age. Story 34. I floss after every meal. I developed gum disease back in 2000. All it took to fix it was one good cleaning and then flossing at least 3 times a day, usually immediately after a meal. I've been doing it for over 23 years now and have never had a problem since. Story 35. If it is just me and one other person walking toward my direction going the opposite way, who I may or may not know, when I am walking down the hallway at work, I try to make eye contact and acknowledge you at the least. It is amazing how many people do not. Story 36. Always being polite to people who work with others, such as cashiers, waiters, and bartenders, and they always smile when I talk to them as if I've known them for years. Chill, easy, and polite. I might even crack a dad joke sometimes. Story 37. I always hold the keys to any door as I lock it. I did a pocket tap check when I was in a different state and thought I had my keys, but then decided to double check and realized they were actually in my car's ashtray. Nearly being locked out of my car 1,000 miles from home scared me enough that ever since I have always held the keys to a door as I lock it. Story 38. Stretching. I'm a big dude. I used to pull muscles a lot at work. I started stretching a few times a day. Not only am I not sore anymore, I've become unnecessarily flexible for my size. It's funny. Story 39. I didn't realize that the way I talk to servers at restaurants qualified for this until I started noticing that my 10-year-old orders calmly, clearly, and kindly when speaking with servers, and since he's almost always with me when he eats at a restaurant, he had to have gotten that somewhere. Story 40. Wear my seatbelt always, even if I'm driving through the parking lot. I also consolidate my dishes and clean up my table, especially the floor where my daughter has dropped a bunch of food, toys, napkins, whatever, when I'm at a restaurant. This one is always met with high gratitude. Story 41. I sleep for 90 times plus 15 minutes. This keeps me waking up feeling relatively fresh and not groggy since I wake up between sleep cycles. Mine is almost 90 on the dot, but other people might have slightly shorter or longer cycles and time to get into their first one. Story 42. Flossing every night, face sunscreen every morning, drinking water all day long. Those last 2 can be credited to growing up in the desert, but I've carried those habits to everywhere I've lived. Story 43. Putting on my seatbelt. I've run out to the car to get something that required me to get into the seat to reach, and I've been surprised when trying to get out that I had put my seatbelt on reflexively without even noticing. Story 44. Make my bed right after waking up. I have done this for as long as I can remember. Fold my laundry as soon as it is dry, not leaving it lying around. On that note, doing my laundry before it is piled up. Using the bathroom. Story 45. I found out about a year ago that pushing in your chair isn't considered normal. Neither is using a turn signal even if there's no one there or returning a shopping cart. Despite the fact that these are basic and the easiest of manners, it's no wonder the modern world is full of degenerates. Story 46. Putting things back where I got them from. I have a little bit of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, so if I don't put things back where I found them after I'm done using them, I'll lose it. I had to learn the phrase, don't put it down, put it away, and unlearn all my natural instincts. Laugh out loud. Story 47. I make my bed the moment I get up. I fold laundry straight from the dryer. These 2 things make me feel like I have my act together when I definitely do not. Story 48. Plug-in devices, battery packs, and my electric vehicle for charging when I'm done or not using them. My kids leave dead battery packs around the house and then blame me when they need to charge. My wife, I love her to death. I ask her to simply back the Q4 in and I'll plug it in, but that's a tall ask. Story 49. Washing up before bed. No matter what sort of day I've had, it's incredibly rare that I go to bed with a sink full of dishes. At first, forcing myself to do this was an absolute nightmare, but now it's second nature and it feels so good not to wake up to dirty dishes. Story 50. Never realized how many people don't wear seatbelts until I got made fun of for it. Also, washing my hands. I'm appalled when I see people use the bathroom and sprinkle a bit of water on their hands, and sometimes not even that, and go about their day. Story 51. Wash hands, never touch railings, drink water, close toilet lid when flushing, pay off bills first, shop around, go without or delay gratification, check fluids before a trip. Story 52. I drive like an old lady on the road. I am always in the right lane except when I have to pass, rarely go above 70 miles per hour on the highways, keep wide margins from cars in front of me, take my foot off the accelerator and let it coast when I see cars piling up in the distance, and always try to avoid stomping on the brakes or accelerator. I even try to make it a game to see how few times I have to step on the brakes whenever I get on the highway to go to work. The same general thing on the streets. When I see a lot of traffic in the distance or a traffic light that is either fixing to turn red or is red and may turn green by the time I get there, I take my foot off the accelerator and let it coast there until I have to brake. My drives are stress-free, smooth, safer for everyone around me, and my gas mileage has gone up by 50%. Story 53. Save a little money each month and have it set up to go into savings on the day I'm paid so I never see it. It accumulates over time without really having to think about it. I appreciate that it's a privilege not everyone enjoys to have some to save each month, but it's been a help to me, which I'm thankful for. Story 54. Go to the toilet before I leave the house. My grandma told me to never leave the house without peeing first because you never know what can happen and how long you won't be able to reach a toilet. And I have to say, she might have been an alcoholic, but that's the best advice anyone has ever given me. Rest in peace, Grandma.